For the past 45 years, I have dedicated my life and my whole career to finding the root cause of disease. And I now know with certainty that we must play a role in our own health care. I'm a self-care advocate, and you know what? Every time you change your diet for the better, exercise, or swallow a nutritional supplement, so are you. Now welcome to Know the Cause. Friends, cancer, if you've heard those words, 3 words, you have cancer, you know what happened. You left the doctor's office, you sat in your car, you might have cried, you drove home, you began telling loved ones. This is a tough disease because we don't have a handle on it. I'd love to tell you, boy, we're going to battle, we're raising billions of dollars, and don't worry, it's all going to be fine. What is cancer? It's characterized by a tumor, a lump in your body that can grow without oxygen. So the typical guy in the shower, washing up, ooh, there's a lump under my left arm. A month later, ooh, that lump's getting a little bit bigger. 6 months later, wow, it's a golf ball under my arm. I better go to a doctor now. How can this thing live without oxygen? If it's enclosed, how can it live without oxygen? Folks, what I want to do is take a few minutes now and teach you the similarities between fungus and cancer. No, not enough attention in the medical literature is given to this, but fungi, I believe, protect themselves from white blood cell invasion, phagocytosis, by enclosing themselves in a sac formation. It's called an ascomycete or a mycetoma, right? They enclose themselves and then asexually begin reproducing. So that lump gets bigger and bigger and bigger without oxygen. Let's talk about some of the similarities that we see in fungal invasion and cancer tumor formation. Okay, number 1, each thrives in a sac formation. Each can metabolize nutrients without oxygen. Each generates lactic acid. Each depends on us for sustenance, proliferation, and reproduction. Isn't this fascinating? Yeah, that's right. See, folks, I think since we've never been able to define, you'll take some cells and you'll go, wow, Mrs. Jones, that's breast cancer because mutated DNA, your P53 gene, your Superman gene isn't protecting you. Folks, fungus messes with the P53 Superman gene. Fungus causes cancer mutations. What more do we need? Okay, but look, there is more. Similarities between cancer and fungus. Each thrive in the presence of sugar and die in the total absence of sugar. Each emit volatile organic compounds, and dogs can be trained to sniff out both fungus and mold and cancer. Both respond to antifungal medicines. I do this live. This is such a good venue. On TV, it's impersonal. You can't call me and say, hey, Doug, my aunt has cancer, what do I do? So I started years ago, and we now get 60, 70,000 people a month joining us, viewing this. I started a social media. It's on YouTube, it's on Facebook. You just go to my website, Know the Cause, and join me for an hour Tuesday, an hour and a half on Thursday. And it's live. You can type in questions to me, and it's really been a good thing. Someone wrote in the other day and said, well, what proof do you have that cancer and fungus might be the same thing? And there's a huge, I've attended seminars, I've given lectures to doctors on cancer and fungus similarities. Look at this. Does cancer really, Doug, respond well to antifungal drugs? Amphotericin B and griseofulvin are older antifungal drugs. Lamisil, Sporanox, Nizoral, thiabendazole are prescription drugs used to kill fungus. All of these drugs have been published as playing a role in inhibiting cancer. Coinkydinky? How many there's hundreds of antibiotics. There's over 100 antivirals. There's a handful of antifungal drugs. I think honestly, if we test voriconazole and all the new antifungal drugs, they would be able to induce apoptosis, kill cancer cells also. There's a reason for this, folks. Medicine has been blind to mold. Every doctor in the world is tested for bacteria and virus, can't seem to find it. They didn't learn mycology in their medical training. Good people, twice my IQ, honorable people. But if you don't give them the tools, then all they'll have to do is treat symptoms, not know the cause or fix anything. And I'm afraid that's kind of where we are today with cancer. Good people change. If you have cancer, change everything. Wow, that was 2002. Dr. Beverly Hunt, Dr. Dave Holland helped me with his book, The Germ That Causes Cancer, 17 years ago. This was my hypothesis, and I'll explain it to you in a minute. It was a big book. It wasn't bound properly. We probably printed 5,000 of them off, and they sold quickly. Now we have a little short version of The Germ That Causes Cancer, an easy read for people. But I'll tell you why I do that. A few years ago, I read this. Scientists provide explanation for how cancer spreads. We call that metastasis. This Dr. John Pollack says, although we know a vast amount about cancer, how cancer cells become metastatic still remains a mystery. See, I don't know how you can know a vast amount about something and not know from whence it came or how it spreads. But these are smart people. He's out at Yale University, and I'm sure he's a great guy. This was in 2008, okay? 5 years later, in the year 2013, this is Dr. Lazava, and she and I wrote some emails back and forth, really a good person. 5 years later, Yale University researchers continue. Our results provide the first proof in humans that metastasis of cancer can occur when a white blood cell and a cancer cell fuse and form a genetic hybrid. Now, I want to show you the cover of this book, The Germ That Causes Cancer. Remember the flux capacitor? You know, Back to the Future, the flux capacitor in that DeLorean? This was my flux capacitor on the cover of this book. There you see fungal DNA and human DNA merging to form a hybrid, which is a lump, a hybrid DNA, or cancer, down here at the bottom. Okay? Silly, I know, says my next graphic, but what if cancer cells were sometimes fungal cells, as I believe they are? After all, they're really similar. And let me show you what I mean by that. This is a graphic that I have showed to many doctors and many in the lay audience. And it's an important graphic, so you better understand that cancer and fungus are really similar. Number one, they each thrive in a sac formation. Number two, they metabolize nutrients without oxygen. They grow without oxygen. They each generate a poison called lactic acid. Each depends on us for sustenance, proliferation, and reproduction. Each thrive in the presence of sugar and die in the absence of sugar or carbohydrates. Each emit volatile organic compounds. Dogs that sniff out mold also sniff out cancer because they both have VOCs, and that's what dogs sniff. And finally, we now know that Lamisil and thiabendazole and Sporanox both respond to antifungal medications. Isn't that fascinating? I mean, they share those. So folks, when you have a sac fungus that's growing in a sac to protect itself from our white blood cells eating it up, it grows in a sac and it reproduces, and through the months and years, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and a cancer tumor. How does a doctor know? And the quick answer is a biopsy. We've all seen studies of doctors taking lung tissue, sending it to a lab, and they say, yep, that's cancer. Why? It's a cancer lab. Why don't you send half of it to a fungus lab and see if that lump isn't a sac fungus? They just don't do that. They're not there yet. I think 15, 20 years, obviously, if Know the Cause has any say in it, it'll be sooner. They're not there yet. They don't know these cancer and fungus might grow in tumor, but you know the difference. Really? How is it then that those 24 patients, 27 patients in 2013 with diagnosed lung cancer ended up getting well on antifungal medicines, proving this wasn't cancer, This was fungus growing in their lungs. These Yale doctors are brilliant, but I disagree that they have discovered the cause of cancer metastasis. I believe their discovery is much greater than the cause of why cancer spreads. Serendipitously, if my genetic fusion cancer hypothesis is accurate, they have actually discovered the cause of cancer. I'll never forget Milton White. He was a doctor in Michigan Hospital. We got on an airplane, flew back and met him. His wife had died of breast cancer, and in tears, he's in his white lab coat, probably in his 70s, he's crying. His wife, before she died, grabbed his arm and said, "Milty, you're a smart man. Figure out this disease." And he just wept. He was an amazing man. And before he died, some years later, he wrote this in a medical journal. He told me he had figured out the cause of cancer. Cancer is neither the result of a virus nor the consequence of an inherited gene defect. Cancer is a hybrid. It is due to a plant conidia, these spores derived from an ascomycete or sac strain of fungus. That was in 1996. I learned much from Dr. Milton White before he died. I learned from Dr. A.V. Costantini. I learned from so many giants what I today believe to be the cause of cancer. If I had cancer anywhere in my body, I'd get it cultured for fungus. Go ahead and send some of the biopsy to cancer labs, but it's very important that you send some of it off to a mycology lab. Mycology is the study of fungus. Hope this helps. You know, when you think of miracle, what do you think of? You think of a medical practice. Miracles do happen in medical practices. They happen every day to very fortunate people. Such a person is Jane Rush. She was very ill with cancer, and I'll let her tell her story until her husband found at a local retail place in Texas here the name of a doctor who might be able to help her. The other doctor said, "Get your affairs in order. This is a really advanced cancer." Take it away, Jane. Thank you for coming in.
Thank
really
you.
Appreciate you.
Thank
That
you.
must have been a rough day. When you heard of Dr. Ganino, you were in a wheelchair coming out of a hospital.
I was being sent home with the offer of a hospital bed because they didn't think I was going to get better. And we thanked them but said no to the hospital bed. And I went home in a wheelchair, and my husband had seen Dr. Ganino earlier that day at our bank. And he said, "I want to see her as soon as possible." So the next morning we went in to see him.
Jane, you heard the four-letter word hope,
I did.
whereas you didn't have it before.
No, I was really struggling with fear and with imminent death, or I truthfully don't think they expected me to live to the next year.
I love what Dr. Ganino means to this city and to the many, many patient miraculous recoveries we've seen. But I really like his approach.
Mm-hmm.
I like when he opens these, closes this, tell me your story, and then I like that what he does isn't invasive.
Right.
You know, so Dr. Ganino, welcome. Thank you,
Thank you,
once
Doug.
again for being on here.
Thank
You're
you,
a
Doug,
loved,
for having me
a
back.
loved guest on the
Thank
show.
you.
What do you do? Comes in to see you with her family, right?
Mm-hmm.
In a wheelchair, given a short time to live.
Yeah.
And this was 5-6 months ago.
Yeah, so the first thing I'll do, I'll try to weave somewhere in there some other miracle. Like Jane, we got Revis out in Fort
Yeah,
Stockton,
we did. You
right?
told me.
And her tumor marker for ovarian cancer should be below 38. And when we met her, it was 7,744, and she was told that she was going to die.
This a friend of yours, or-
This
His,
is just
a patient.
Yeah, and she's going to be dead in 2 months.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, Revis, stop making cancer, get off gluten, all the stuff. Jane did, cut out the cancer. She said, I've got cancer all over the place. They didn't say if I take out my uterus and my ovaries, it's going to make any difference. I said, Jane, would you rather fight 4 bears at a time or 2 bears at a time? Or Revis, would you rather fight 4 bears or 2 bears? She said, 2 bears. I said, yeah. So we scooped out her ovaries and uterus. Long story short, 15 months later, she's still doing great. She's had 0 chemo, 0 radiation, and her tumor marker is like 17.5 now.
Did you do tumor markers on Jane?
We did tumor markers on Jane.
It's a simple blood test, right?
Simple blood test, and Yeah, so the regular standard of care is a $1,600 CAT scan that is equivalent to smoking a pack of cigarettes a day for 19 years as far as the damage. She didn't have any insurance. We said, here's how we're going to follow you. Clinically, we're going to see how you're doing. Your pain better? Yep. Your energy's better? Yep. You're sleeping better? Yep. Your bowels are better? Yep. Guess what? You're getting better.
Yep.
Your heart rate's getting slower? You're
Yes.
getting better,
Yes.
right? Heart rate getting slower,
Yep.
healing patient, getting faster, sicker patient. Clinically, tumor markers, and sonographically where possible. And so far, here's the miracle.
Yeah.
as we
The
say.
tumor markers that a doctor evaluates, is your cancer getting worse or better when they go down, are half of what they were 5 months ago. So do you think Jane is getting better or worse? And I have to, I'm sorry I think this way, but I have to wonder.
I know.
Don't you? I
Yeah.
have to wonder.
I know.
You know, it makes me so proud. We, refer some business to Dr. Ganino, and we do it for a reason. There's a doctor in our little town that listens, lets you decide chemo, radiation, CT scans. You get to be, the final decision. But he says, by the way, I want to bypass the gut when it doesn't work. You're not what you eat, you are what you absorb. I want to put some vitamins in here. I want to do some other things that might help a person with a weakened immune system get better. Is that kind of the approach?
That is the approach.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Tell me, in the 20 seconds we have left, where's your heart now?
I am at peace, I'm at rest, I'm excited, and I'm confident in my healing.
Isn't that the way God works?
Amen.
Your husband walks into the bank, make a deposit. There's a guy there making a deposit. How are you?
Right.
My wife's really sick. And the rest,
Amen.
Yeah.
divine intervention.
Amen.
Thank you, Jane, for
Thank
coming
you.
in and telling us that story. Thank you once again for these miraculous occurrences.
Thank you.
Folks, don't go away. I'll be right back with more. Hey friends, Dr. John Ganino, a buddy of mine from out here in Texas, joins us right now. 6-7 months ago, I asked a friend of mine to go see Dr. Ganino, and he said, would you go with me? And Dr. Ganino, I sat there, this was hard for me. My lip zipped, listening to him go over the blood work with my friend. And he gets down to cholesterol and he says, 240. I should put you on a statin drug. I need to tell you that. I need to tell you. Tell me about the rest of your life. Tell me about your diet. Before he put him on a statin drug, tell me a little bit about your immune system, about your workouts, about how much water you drink. I thought that was fascinating. You never hear that from other doctors.
Yeah, in December of 17, I sat down at my kitchen table and wrote a little article that it struck me that the recent, cardiologists met once a year for this annual thing. Their number one person, the president of the American College of Cardiology, 52 years old, had a heart attack.
I remember that.
And I saw it sort of as a sign from on high that, look, I've charged you guys with being the leaders in this field, and your focus is off. Your focus is on high cholesterol. It's not about that. In our office, at the very worst, high cholesterol is one side of Velcro. As you know, one side of Velcro doesn't stick to anything. The only time it gets sticky and causes a problem is if the sticky stuff is there. The sticky stuff is called homocysteine. I think the emphasis is off. I think it's about inflammation. It's about rotting and rusting, fungus and toxins. Create high homocysteine. I called Mark earlier this week, M-A-R-C, and I got his permission to use his case. And so he's 60 now, but when he was 52, great cholesterol, total cholesterol is 134, great blood pressure, not a diabetic, very fit, trim, works out regularly, doesn't smoke, really no risk factors, if you will, for heart attack. And we saw him in the office on follow-up from having a heart attack, and he went to the hospital and they put 2 stents in him, and his homocysteine level is 20.2. The target is 4 to 7. So for everybody who's watching, the test you want your doctor to run on you is called a homocysteine level, okay? You want that value to be between 4 and 7. You might come back with a 10.5, and that your doctor's going to tell you that's normal. Well, Doug, you and I know that norms are compiled mathematically from taking random samples of our population, and you and I both know the average person in the United States is not well.
Yeah.
They're pretty sick.
Yeah.
And so 4 to 7 is the target. And if your doctor can't help you get that down, we can help you. Doug can help you. We're resources for you guys to be able to get the sticky stuff down so that the cholesterol doesn't cause a problem for you.
You as a doctor, are you duty bound when you see a 250 cholesterol? Where are doctors on this? When you see a 250 cholesterol, are you duty bound to reach and write?
You know, I think most doctors, my experience, because most of our patients come from other doctors' offices that have failed them, I think it's a combination of what they know and what they've been taught, and also fear that if they don't do the standard of care and something goes wrong, they're going to get sued. I'm more of an experiential guy. I'm a trust, you know, what I see, and our patients don't really have problems with heart disease and strokes, and it's because they keep their inflammatory markers down by regularly detoxing, part of which is to clean up fungus, which of course you know about.
In the minute we have left, you handed my friend and I an article that I still have.
Yeah.
I mean, that's an amazing headline.
Yeah, so this is from the Journal of the American Medical Association, written by Rita Redberg, who's she's the editor of Archives of Internal Medicine and the deputy editor, and they're talking about cognitive impairment from statin drugs like Lipitor, Crestor, etc., moderate to serious liver dysfunction, acute renal failure, muscles breaking down, women's health initiatives talking about diabetes, advising healthy patients to take a drug that does not offer the possibility to feel better, live longer, and has significant adverse effects with a potential decrement in quality of life is not in their interest.
But read the headline of that article.
Healthy men should not take statins.
I mean, I almost fell out of the chair. Here you're talking about this group, American cardiologists, holding these big meetings and convincing people we need statins. What did we do before statins came on the market, and are there alternatives? Dr. John Ganino, GaninoWellness.com. Thank you for coming in.
Thanks, Doug.
You bet. You know, I gave a lecture to a group of doctors somewhere, I forget where it was, a continuing medical education course several years ago. And I wanted to teach, there were probably 300 or 400 doctors present. I wanted to teach these doctors a little bit about nutrition, okay? My whole goal was to sit down and have them learn several things, and let's go over that. But I loved this graphic I found on WebMD. Here it is. Nutritional confusion in cancer care. With 20 to 90%, I would have thought that number would be 80 to 90% of cancer patients using supplements, oncologist Dr. Richard Frank is confident with the cancer questions. But then comes the questions that I'm not so confident in answering. Inevitably, he says, every patient asks, what should I eat? How can I fight cancer by eating the right foods? They want to know which foods will actually help them fight the cancer better and live longer. Will vitamins help? That's verbatim from WebMD. I think that's so classic and so good of them to post that. I think that's so good of Dr. Frank to ask that question. Folks, when you educate a person in removing a tumor, you rarely educate them as to what caused that tumor. You make your income from removing tumors or treating tumors over a long period of time. Who's going to decide what cancer is? We get some clues as we go along here, okay? Most people are saying, you know, Doug, go green. A green plant-based diet is a great start. They've changed through the years. As you guys know, the food pyramid changed and so forth. Why might plants help cancer patients? That's the question I always had. And then during this same lecture, I kind of backed through it. I began to study. I went to websites that I wouldn't normally visit overseas. Sometimes we in America are biased, and we don't like any paper published overseas. You see, we want it published in America because those are unbiased. Oh, don't get me started. Those are unbiased journals that no one would deceive anyone by saying that they have financial ties to a drug company when they publish. We're running into problems, folks. There's sometimes some unscrupulous people publish in very respected journals. Okay, that's going on. Everything's changing in medicine. So I began to study some of these journals. Look what a couple of them said. This is the International Journal of Current Science Research, a good journal, and it was 4 or 5 years ago. All plants possess phenolic compounds, but the amount may vary. Now stay with me. Then here's a Canadian Journal of Plant Pathology, 6 years ago. It has been demonstrated that phenolic compounds have antifungal properties. You've heard of polyphenolic or polyphenol foods, right? I mean, folks, isn't that fascinating? When a seed is planted in the ground, it better start resisting. Before it grows up through the topsoil, it better have built into that little seed the ability to fight the bacteria in the dirt, fight the fungus in the dirt. So anything that grows through the germination process and up to the sun where, it begins really growing, has powerful antimicrobial properties. Now, if I'm eating antimicrobial spinach and kale and grapefruit and, things that grow on trees, and am I then benefiting from that antifungal component or antibacterial? You bet. You'd have to eat a huge number of grapefruits to actually get real antifungal properties, but a little bit of fresh squeeze, not canned or jarred or canned, fresh squeeze, grapefruit juice, organic grapefruit juice, amazing. Or juicing with kale and organic carrots, and you're getting antimicrobial properties when you're doing that, okay? Are you starting to think the way I'm thinking? Even American Cancer is saying, go green, a plant-based diet. But nobody's asking the right questions. What's in the plant that is benefiting not getting cancer or treating it if we have cancer? Here are polyphenol foods, a statement that they are good for you. They are powerful antioxidants that can help prevent free radical damage in our cells and our DNA. And I say, wait a minute. Fungus damages our cells and mutates our DNA. Anytime I see antioxidant or preventing free radical damage, folks, I think fungus. Anything that's antioxidant is antifungal. Many of these are low-carb foods. Wait a minute. Low-carb foods starve fungus, don't they? They are known to fight disease. Then might those diseases be caused by fungi? Just the way Doug Kaufman's brain works. Maybe different from everyone else's. Have you noticed, anybody make a New Year's resolution several months ago? Was it to lose weight, to feel better, to prevent disease, to start an exercise program? You're thinking the right way, folks. Here are some low-carb polyphenolic foods. Pecan, hazelnut, flaxseed, red onion, spinach, black elderberries, blueberries. You see the berries here, blackberries, black currant, the sage spice, dried peppermint, dark chocolate, which is cacao bean, olives, and the list goes on and on and on. You're beginning to see the Kaufman diet unfold. How do I hope to prevent the onset of heart disease, cancer, arthritis, etc.? By eating antifungal foods. Welcome to the Kaufman diet. Now you better understand why this program is working so well for so many, okay? God bless you. Now you know that. Here's a word for you as we jump off on this segment, hepatotoxicity. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next. No, hepatotoxicity, hepato, liver, poison, right? So folks, when a doctor prescribes some of these, they're called azole drugs, itraconazole, fluconazole, diflucan, Sporanox, they filter through the liver, and the liver can become poisoned by the action of the drug itself. Joining me right now is a good buddy of mine, Dr. John Ganino, who's out here locally near the Dallas area. And he probably is the doctor, since all the doctors I worked with are gone now, that prescribes more antifungal drugs than anyone. So question, we'll start off this way. How many cases of hepatotoxicity have you seen?
0.
Okay, same
Nystatin,
here.
and Lamisil, Griseofulvin, Sporanox, diflucan's the one you mentioned.
Yep.
0, not a single one.
Wow, you prescribe Griseofulvin? Sometimes it really does come in handy.
Yeah, absolutely.
The older generation, the Nizoral, sometimes
Sure.
they're toxic, but
Right.
they really come in handy. You and I have talked about this. Fungus is a problem. You see fungus as often as any doctor does, but you address fungus. You talk about the toxic load when a patient comes in to see you, be they blepharospasms, eye twitches, migraines, gout. He looks at the body as, okay, There's something off there. Instead of giving you a drug that will reply every 2 to 6 hours for the rest of your life, don't you want to know the cause? That's what his office digs in. You do glutathione IVs. How important is that for the liver?
It's tremendous. We do take care of a number of people with sick livers, and we've never had a single person, not a single one, I'm talking about stage 4 cancer, whatever, with elevated liver function that we haven't been able to help. It's like called batting 1,000.
How does the body become so toxic?
Again, it's a country that burns 19,000 gallons of gasoline in 1 second, so it's in the air. You guys probably, or a lot of you probably know, because you're pretty educated, that 10% of United States groundwaters exceeds healthy levels for cadmium or arsenic or both. So it's in our groundwater. It's in the food we eat, preservatives and things like that. And again, I think, Doug, a thing that's really being missed by a large part of the doctors is this whole MTHFR connection. The genetic connection to not be able to detox very well. And so if you don't know about that and you're not supporting that enzyme at the same time that you're getting coached up on detox, you're on the cancer trail. It's just a matter of time.
What induces that mutation?
It's a great question, and I don't know, but I would just, again, probably go with things that just mess up the body in general, which are acid pH and toxins primarily. And of course, mycotoxins could be one of those toxins.
Yeah. Question before I let you go today. Some of the people I have referred to you, or our office has referred to you, say you address something called forgiveness. Jump off on that.
Yeah, again, the older I get in this life, I think it's getting more simple. I remember being a kid in a stream, and you would turn over a rock to see if there's a pollywog underneath there, and it would be a little cloudy for a while, but the current of the stream would carry it past, and eventually you could see the little guy and get down there and get him. And to me, it's becoming really simple now. Love everybody all the time. Forgive everybody all the time. My hero is Dr. Martin Luther King. He said, forgiveness is not an occasional act. Forgiveness is a permanent attitude. If you're able to get there, that's where that healing happens up in there. All those love, joy, compassion states, that's where it's at, and that's what we witness in our office.
Their office is truly amazing. If you'd like to come see him, he's near the Dallas area. Fly into DFW or Love Airport and get on over to see him. Thank you for sharing your wisdom with us.
Thanks for having me today, Doug.
Good to have you. I think for a little fun, I'll break things up a little bit. A couple of years ago, I was invited to give a lecture on phytonutrients, phyto plant nutrients, nutrients in plants. Folks, this is quickly becoming huge business. As we run out of antibiotics that work, as we run out of antifungals that work, even scientists are scattering, trying to find natural herbs and spices and plants that grow in Brazil and things that might work universally to help people who are infected, help people who are sick and try and get better. So the word phytonutrient first came across my desk, probably 40 years ago while I was in California. And it's a big word, but let me go over some things with you, okay? In 2016, I was invited to lecture on phytonutrients and their possible role in cancer. There was a large group of physicians, not all of whom were cancer specialists, but collectively these guys, these men and women, saw over 1,000 patients a day. This was my chance. And I was going to try and prove two things to them. Now, it's such a blessing to be a non-physician, to be asked to lecture at one of these, because you can impact the minds of those physicians. And to give a man a fish, to give a physician a fish, means he eats for one day. To teach those doctors in that audience to fish means more of his patients will benefit from what he is absorbing. Okay, so here was my goal. Number one, both they and I believe that plant nutrition can be a powerful tool. This was an alternative group of doctors in cancer prevention and or recovery, and I intended to show them why. And number two, plants have had to survive germ attacks since they were placed on the earth. For a plant to thrive in the soil, it had to become a powerful or powerfully anti-germ. Okay, just understand that. A farmer plants 10 seeds and 7 or 8 of them grow. What happened to the other 2 or 3? That's the way we need to think. So what I did was I discovered that some of these phytonutrients could be used to treat cancer patients. Most commonly occurring cancers, according to the Center for Disease Control in women, breast, lung, colorectal. In men, prostate, lung, colorectal. So I had that information. And then I'm telling you, this is the truth. I sat down and I thought this is going to be a 1-month study to figure out which of these phytonutrients I wanted to study with regard to the top 3 or 4 causes of cancer. Here's what happened. Do plant phytochemicals have anti-cancer properties? I randomly chose phytochemicals because I could pronounce them. Ficitin, resveratrol, curcumin, proanthocyanidin, silmarin, genistein, camptothecin, sulforaphane, indole-3-carbinol, capsaicin, luteolin, and d-limonene were studied for their ability to inhibit the spread of cancer or a cancer pathway or induce apoptosis or cause cancer cells to burst apart in 4 of the leading types of cancer: colorectal, breast, prostate, and lung cancers. Okay, this is what I did, and I thought, well, I'll go through these 10 first, and then I'll find 10 more. And I told my wife I'm going to need 2 weeks to do this. Those 12, the more I delved into the scientific research, I couldn't believe. I didn't have to go to a second batch. Those 12 worked. Let's take just one of them, sulforaphane. Dr. Talele is the founding director of the Lewis B. and Dorothy Coleman Chemoprotection Center at Johns Hopkins University School of Medicine. Smart guy. He is one of the top biochemical researchers or biomedical researchers in the world and was a pioneer in the field of phytochemicals. As a matter of fact, I think he was involved in discovering many of them, but naming many of them. I mean, a smart guy. In 1997, the Johns Hopkins Press release, Dr. Talele discovered that 3-day-old broccoli sprouts consistently contain 20 to 50 times the amount of chemoprotective compound, sulforaphane, that was found in mature broccoli heads, which may offer a simple dietary means of chemically reducing your cancer risk. Okay, this is really interesting. 3-day-old broccoli, organic if you will, consistently contain 20 to 50 times the amount of chemoprotection. If I'm going through chemotherapy, I want my cells to be protected. What he's saying is sulforaphane is the way to go. Sulfur-containing compound found in vegetables, answer your question, what is this stuff? It's found in the mustard family. Anti-carcinogenic isocyanide that is thought to function by stimulating the production of enzymes in the body that detoxify cancer-causing substances. We tend to think of only broccoli when we hear sulforaphane, but Brussels sprouts and a number of cabbage are abundant in this. So what I did, folks, was I lined up sulforaphane and then saw how it performed for colorectal cancer, breast, prostate, and lung. Did it work? Were there studies to prove it? Here's what I found. CR is colorectal. Induces cell death throughout this phase, arrests and triggers apoptosis, which means cell death in human colorectal cancer cells. Breast cancer, sulforaphane inhibits triple-negative breast cancer through activating tumor suppressor. Breast cancer, and the list just goes on and on. In prostate cancer, sulforaphane stabilizes the androgen receptor in a prostate cancer cell by inactivating histone deacylase. And finally, lung cancer, sulforaphane-induced apoptosis, death in a certain type of lung cancer. I want to tell you the amazing thing about this. I literally, and so did the doctors who asked me to do this. The one doctor said, Doug, this might be a month for you sitting at home in the evening or on weekends putting this together. Try and find 12 that inhibit or kill colorectal, breast, prostate, and lung cancer. Like that. I think if I had enough time and did enough research, I could find that plant foods we eat prevent these diseases from coming on. We're all going to get in sugar, we're all going to get in chocolate, we're all going to get into a glass of alcohol. Afterwards, do me a favor, broccoli, cabbage. It doesn't sound, Brussels sprouts, it doesn't sound very appetizing, but apparently it's more powerful than we thought. Not surprisingly, sulforaphane is both anti-cancer and antifungal. A short time ago, the journal Bioorganic Chemistry announced that a series of new sulforaphane analogs, and folks, this is a long way of saying they're developing drugs, right? New sulforaphane analogs had been developed. The antifungal activity of the new compound, these analogs, were found to be higher than the activity of just the parent sulforaphane. Trust me when I tell you, here's where they're going. New drugs coming on the market whose base will be broccoli. Should we wait for the drugs, or should we start eating those now with or without cancer, hoping to prevent it? Hope that sinks in. Joining us right now is a guy who's become a good friend of mine. He lives here locally near us. Dr. John Ganino has a thriving practice out here in the east, just east of Dallas. He and I are like-minded. We think food, nutrition. Welcome to the show, and thank you.
Thanks, Doug. Thanks
so
for
much
having me
for
back.
taking time away from the practice and come over. I
love
bet that's
it.
a relief, isn't it?
Yeah, I love it. It's fun to teach.
I've walked in his practice several times, and there's people like taking a number, you know. That's not that bad. Can I start this way? One of the things you do that I absolutely love is you poke a person's finger. And then you put it on a glass slide, and someone assesses under a microscope. What do you see that pathologists don't?
Yeah, it's called a phase contrast dark field microscope. So the optics are such that you're allowed to, or you have access to, seeing things like candida. This is just yesterday, this case. I think about this young lady who came in, and she'd been pretty much beaten down with antibiotics and steroids and all that for chronic sinus stuff and chronic bronchitis. And she'd actually been told, and I've been doing this for 24 years, the first person that's ever said, we're going to have to surgically go in and scoop out the mucus plugs in your lungs. Well, it's all fungus that they created. So we prick her finger, we put her blood on television at 200 to 400 magnification, and I showed her this, and I said, look, this is a parasite right here. She said, yeah, I saw it. It was swimming in my blood like that. I said, when we detox your body, when we take care of your fungus, we get your pH up, we detox your various organs, your body's internal environment will become more alkaline, and that thing will die on its own. We don't have to do anything specific for that parasite. It'll just take care of itself when we basically change the water in your fish tank. See, what America does is, they come in and they're sick. It's analogous to the fish in the fish tank. What are they going to, the fish is swimming around in there like that, take them out of the water, pump them full of a bunch of antibiotics and steroids, and stick them back in the water. The treatment is change the water, and the fish will heal on its own. So.
Wow, what an analogy. I want to talk to you in the short time we have.
Sure.
Diet, nutrition. Folks, it is not what you eat. You are what you eat, they say. No, you're not. You are what you absorb. Most of us have linings, just a lot of gunk in our intestines. How do you overcome that? In other words, can we get nutrition, with all that lining of the lumen?
Yeah, basically it's just like fixing a yard that's, messed up. It's got a lot of weeds. You need weed killer, so that's nystatin usually because it's kind of gentle, so it takes care of the, the gut fungus, and then we're going to have to clean it out. So it's fiber and herbs, which is getting that gunk off the lining like you're talking about. And then you're going to have to reseed, so it's probiotics, and then you're going to have to fertilize, which is digestive enzymes. You're going to have to water your lawn, which is water. And you're going to have to give it sunshine, which we believe prayer helps a lot. And then you're going to have to patch up their leaky gut holes, and we usually use colostrum for that to patch their gut, and it works almost all the time.
One thing you guys do over there that I'm so proud of you. By the way, Susie says to say hello.
Yeah, she's awesome.
This was a woman that we sent to you years ago whose son was very sad, a friend of my son's, that his mom had cancer and didn't have a good outlook. What's that, 7 years ago?
Yeah, she's a great story.
She really is. But one of the things you guys do is you bypass gut and put nutrition here. I remember the old Myers cocktail that we used to do at Medical City, Dallas.
Yep. You're
doing a variation of that, or are you using a lot of different things?
We do IV vitamins. We also do hydrogen peroxide for candida. We do diflucan, fluconazole for candida and other fungi. Ozone works pretty well. We've had great success, actually, guys, with using IV ozone for Lyme as well as macular degeneration. Works great. Those are the main ones. Susie's favorite is glutathione. She said, if I come in and I take IV glutathione, this is a lady with metastatic breast cancer, y'all. She goes, I can run circles around my children and up and down the Target aisles when we shop.
She's a hoot, and she just loves you in the office. Did you say y'all? I know where you practice. I know where you practice. Folks, Dr. Ganino is right in the middle of America, right in Dallas, Texas. You land, you come see him, your world could change. There are many benefits. Thank you for all the freebies you give to people who come see us as a result of being on the show. We'll be right back with more. Thank you, Dr. Ganino.